BMW 507. The BMW 507 is a Grand Touring convertible that was produced by German automobile manufacturer BMW from 1956 until 1959. Initially intended to be exported to the United States at a rate of thousands per year, it ended up being too expensive, resulting in a total production figure of 252 cars and heavy financial losses for BMW. The BMW 507 was conceived by U.S. automobile importer Max Hoffman, who, in 1954, persuaded the BMW management to produce a roadster version of the BMW 501 and BMW 502 saloons to fill the gap between the expensive Mercedes-Benz 300 SL and the cheap and underpowered Triumph and MG sports cars. BMW engineer Fritz Fiedler was assigned to design the rolling chassis, using existing components wherever possible. Early body designs by Ernst Loof were rejected by Hoffman, who found them to be unappealing. In November 1954, at Hoffman's insistence, BMW contracted designer Albrecht von Goertz to design the BMW 503 and the 507. 34 Series I-507s were built in 1956 and early 1957. These cars had welded aluminium fuel tanks of 110 liters, 29.1 US gal, capacity behind the rear seats. These large tanks limited both boot space and passenger space, and gave off the smell of fuel inside the car when the soft top was up or the hard top was in place. 8. Series 2 and later 507 seconds had fuel tanks of 66 liters, 17.4 US gal, capacity under the boot, shaped around the space for the spare tire. The 507's frame is a shortened 503 frame, the wheelbase having been reduced from 2,835 mm, 111.6 in, to 2,480 mm, 97.6 in. The chassis was also made of thicker gauge steel, up from 1.75 mm originally to 2.5 mm. This change was necessitated due to large amounts of flexing in early development mules. Overall length amounted to 4,385 mm, 172.6 in, and overall height is 1,257 mm, 49.5 in. Curb weight was about 1,330 kilograms, 2,930 pounds. The body was almost entirely hand-formed of aluminium, and no two cars were exactly the same. The front suspension has parallel double wishbones with torsion bar springs and an anti-roll bar. The rear suspension has a live axle, also sprung by torsion bars, and located by a panhard rod and a central, transverse arm to control acceleration and braking forces. The brakes were Alphin drum brakes of 284.5 mm, 11.2 in diameter. Power brakes were optional. Late model 507s had front Girling disc brakes, 9, and Pirelli 185 VR 16 Cinturato radial tires. The engine is an aluminium alloy OHV V8 of 3,168 cubic centimeters, 3.2 L, 193.3 cu in displacement, with pushrod-operated overhead valves. It has two Zenith 32 NDIX 2-barrel carburetors, a chain-driven oil pump, high-lift cams, a different spark advance curve, polished combustion chamber surfaces, and a compression ratio of 7.8 to 1, yielding 150 PS, 110 kilowatts, DIN at 5,000 RPM. The engine is mated to a close ratio 4-speed manual transmission. The standard rear-end ratio was 3.70 to 1, but ratios of 3.42 to 1 and 3.90 to 1 were optional. A contemporary road test of a 507 with the standard 3.70 to 1 final drive was reported in Motor Review, stating a 0 to 100 km per hour, 0 to 62 miles per hour, acceleration time of 11.1 seconds and a top speed of 122 miles per hour, 196.3 km per hour. The 507 made its debut at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York in the summer of 1955. Production began in November 1956. Hoffman intended the 507 to sell for about $5,000, which he believed would allow a production run of 5,000 units a year. Instead, high production costs pushed the price in Germany to DM 26,500, then DM 29,950, 14, Note 1. This drove the U.S. price initially to $9,000, then ultimately $10,500, $106,500 today. Some of the prominent buyers were John Derrick, Elvis Presley who owned two, Hans Stuck, and George Schorschmeyer. Despite the celebrity owners, the 507 never reached more than 10% of the sales volume achieved by Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. BMW had intended for 507 to revive the company's sporting image, but the higher production cost led the company to the verge of bankruptcy. BMW lost money on each 507 built and resulted in the company's losses of $15 million for 1959. 17. The company's losses led to the capital infusion from Herbert Quandt in order to prevent the bankruptcy. The launch of the new models, BMW 700 and new Class 1500, helped the company recover financially. Only 252 plus 2 prototypes were built before the production was terminated in 1959. Thanks for watching and subscribe.